Part of my morning routine is I love to have coffee in the garden, and the coffee is made and the light is streaming through the windows. There's a particular in between quality the morning has before the world asks anything of it. And it's not quite gray yet, and it's not quite gold. I take it outside, and there's a notebook on the garden table and a Sharpie, not a laptop. There is something about the hand moving differently in the morning, something that needs to come through before the performance starts. So I sit and I write the date, then nothing for a while, absolutely nothing. And I'm fine with that because I'm used to it. The inflow doesn't come on command. It arrives when the framing stops, when you put down the trying. So this morning, something is circling and I'm writing around the edges of it. I've written 3 pages, maybe four, but somewhere in the fourth page, it breaks through and I put the Sharpie down because what arrived wasn't comfortable. For the last few weeks, I've spent 3 to 4 weeks building a piece about deception, self deception, and the theatre of communal deception. And it's quite careful work. And tracking is a very specific mechanism in the way a person knows something and simultaneously refuses to know it. So, this is something that I'm tracking and what I want to share with you. So, sitting in my garden, I realize I've been running the exact mechanism I've been writing about, not in spite of the writing, but alongside it in parallel. And I've been doing this for months. I sat with that for quite a long time because if I could write about this with precision and still run it this completely, what does that say about the rest of us? Now, I had a client who runs a physiotherapy practice in a market town. She's 48. She's got into this work because someone's hands helped her back to her own body after a 2-year injury. She became the thing that once saved her. That is worth sitting with on its own. She's been in a professional arrangement for 4 years and it's no longer working. Something she knows in the particular way you know things, you've decided not to look at directly and it's no longer working. She feels it when she opens her diary on a Sunday evening before Monday has even arrived. But she shows up every week and the week after and the week after that. She's not confused about whether this arrangement is serving anyone. She knows with a precision that it isn't. The knowing lives inside her alongside the showing up. Two things, no daylight between them. That's not weakness, that's the architecture of something very specific. And there's another client that I was reflecting on who's in his late 50s. He lives in the city that he stopped belonging to 7 years ago. He knows it when he walks to his car and the street feels like a set rather than a place. And he stayed because leaving would require grieving a version of himself he hasn't yet found the words for. So we have two different clients, same thing running in both. The reason I'm telling you these two stories is not to diagnose them. It is because you recognize something, and what you recognize has a structure. Now, depth psychology has a name for it. Freud called it disavowal. The ego holds two contradictory positions simultaneously. It knows the truth in one register and it acts from the lie in another. Now, you may think the psyche is confused, but it's not. It's split. And the split is intelligent and it runs on behalf of something the psyche cannot yet afford to lose. So the ego knows and refuses to know simultaneously. And again, it's not confusion. It's a structured refusal and it's active. It's not passive. So her arrangement is holding an identity built over 20 years. And his city is holding a version of himself that leaving would require a mourning, a certain loss. Now, the formula runs on behalf of those things, not because people are dishonest, but because the exit costs something they haven't yet identified. And it can go something like this: I know very well, but nevertheless. I know this work has stopped meaning anything, but nevertheless, I show up on Monday. Or I know this person isn't capable of what I need, but nevertheless, I stay. I know this city is no longer where I belong, but nevertheless, I'll walk to my car and feel nothing. Is this a character flaw? I don't think it is. I think this is the psyche's most basic survival pattern. It runs in everyone, including me, including you. The question isn't whether you run it. The question is where? Where does it lead to? What does it connect to? What is the significance of it? Like me, you may have been in that meeting. The quarterly all hands, the slides are confident, the strategy's not working, and most people in the room know it. There's a particular quality to the air. The questions are good questions, but they're questions about things that don't matter, but nobody is asking the thing that matters. Or you may have sat at that dinner table where both people know something and they know something has ended. The conversation about the week, what the children did, what's on TV, the particular warmth of maintaining the ordinary, because the alternative is standing in the cold with nothing built yet to stand inside. You've read that press release. The numbers fill 3 slides. Nobody who built them believes them. And the formula doesn't just run in individuals, it runs in rooms, it runs in institutions, it runs across entire cultures at once. And when it runs collectively, it acquires something the individual version doesn't have. It becomes warm. The individual formula is isolating. The collective formula is belonging. When enough people choose not to know the same thing simultaneously, the not knowing becomes shared ground. The bond, the lie acquires the emotional texture of complexity. And community is the one thing a human being will do almost anything to maintain. April 1912 in the North Atlantic. The Titanic has struck the iceberg, not catastrophically, at least not yet, but there is a lean, a subtle wrongness in the angle of everything. Yes, the chandeliers are still lit. The white tablecloths are still white. The champagne is still cold in the glass. The string quartet is playing and nobody's really listening to the music. That is not the point of the music. The point of the music is the signal that says we're still in the room we agreed to be in. The formula is holding. A man in evening dress notices the slight lean of his wine glass. He looks across the table. He picks up his cards. He felt the lean. He is making a choice the room makes possible, the warmth against the cold beginning at the edges. The reason I'm telling you this is not about the iceberg. It is the cards. It is the lean of the glass. It is the specific architecture that makes picking up the cards feel more reasonable than naming the tilt. Now, nobody in that dining room decided to maintain the performance. The performance maintained itself through everyone performing for everyone else. 3,000 years of this pattern, different ships, different dining rooms, same cards. Now, in 2008, the global financial system ran instruments that the people creating them knew were fraudulent. They weren't suspected, they knew. They knew the collapse wasn't a surprise to the people closest to it. It was a deferred recognition. The cards picked up, the lien registered and set aside. Today, it runs in every government announcing a managed transition to AI while dismantling the structures that would make transition possible. It runs in every institution, still performing an authority its audience has stopped believing. I'm sure you can resonate with that. Just think about the gap between the net zero commitments governments sign and the fossil fuel production those same governments expand simultaneously. Same formula, same warmth, same deck leaning. And here's what the formula does to the person who names it. A woman who sees accurately, who tells the truth about what is coming, but who gets dismissed, not because she's wrong, but because she is right. And because belief in her would require the collective to dismantle the story everyone is depending on. So they make her unbelievable instead. They punish the seeing rather than face what is being seen. Her name was Cassandra. That pattern is 3,000 years old. It ran in 2008 and it runs today in every organization that fires the person who named the problem 3 years before the collapse. You can see through the formula completely and still not stop running it. Seeing through it is an intellectual event. Stopping it is a loss event. Exit costs belonging. It costs the shared ground you were standing on. That is the version of yourself the group was holding for you. That morning in the garden, when I saw what I had been running, and not because I didn't understand it, but because understanding and doing something with the understanding are two entirely different operations. The exit was going to cost something specific, and I sat with that cost before I moved. This is not a story about self-deception as a character flaw. It's a story about what happens when a psyche chooses the managed version of reality, when the unmanaged version hasn't yet found a container strong enough to hold it. The formula always protects something real. The question is whether what it protects deserves a better home. Once you feel the warmth of the dining room and the lean of the deck at the same time, you cannot unfeel it. That isn't a problem to solve. It's a direction to begin moving in, not as a decision you announce, but as a quiet returning. It is a direction to begin moving in. You have a name now for the gap between the moment you knew something and the moment you decided not to act on it. That gap is disavowal. It runs in everyone. And the work is not eliminating it. The work is learning to feel it running, but asking what it carries that deserves a better home. So, an inward question for you is this: where are you running the formula right now? I'm not talking about a comfortable area, but the one with the particular weight that comes on a Sunday evening. What are you knowing very well and proceeding as though you don't? And the second question is external. When have you felt the warmth of the dining room and the lean of the deck at the same time and picked up the cards anyway? What happened? Bring that into the comments, not to confess, but to map. This is what I'm building here. I'm attempting to build a precise account of what's running, and it's taught through story rather than delivered as data. And if that's what you came here for, please go ahead and subscribe. That's the transmission. Don't rush past what just moved in you. The gap between what you know and how you live has a name now. What you do with that is yours.